Thank you, George, and welcome to everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start slides, which should work, maybe. Hang on, let's see what's happening here. There we go. Okay, perfect. Great. Hang on, this little control bar is in a different place. Awesome, here we go. Okay, so alumni giving represents the lion's share of philanthropy at most schools, so it makes perfect sense that it's a priority from your head of school or your board of trustees. And I was asked to create this workshop since there seems to be a need across the country for the basics of creating or bolstering an alumni program. And I had a great time gathering this information, and I'm happy to share it with you. So before I was a consultant, I was also a development director, a marketing manager, and another one of my roles at a small K-8 school was that of alumni director. Now, it was a small school, and I can tell you that the struggle was real. It was also a young school. And I decided to broaden the pool of my experience and wisdom through interviewing many alumni directors across the country in the UK, 13 of them actually. And they represent a wide variety of schools and situations. So 5 of them were single-sex schools, 2 of them were K-8 schools, 1 was considered a small school. The youngest school is 46 years old, and the oldest school is 504 years old, which is the Manchester Grammar School in the United Kingdom. So as you can see, most of the alumni directors that I spoke with were also alumni of the school, but not all of them. And I asked my alumni directors a number of questions. I had a list of maybe 9 different questions, and that makes up the bulk of this information that I'm sharing with you today. And I asked them about basically 3 different scenarios, whether you're new to the role, whether you're starting a new alumni program, or you're revitalizing one that isn't quite where you wanted it to be. And I expected 3 different distinct starting points, but my experts agreed that the starting points were basically the same. And I asked them what they would focus on first in the first 2 years. So the 5 top things that you'd focus on in the first 2 years. And here's what they said. So I'm going to go over the 5 things. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then after that, there are other areas that are really important to an alumni program and to understanding what you should be doing and where you should be focusing your energy. So we'll work on that too. The number 1 thing to think about is to assess your data. So every single school talked about how important it was to know who your alumni are and how to contact them. It's really important. It's really hard to communicate with people if you don't know who they are or how to get a hold of them. The only schools who didn't talk about your data first are the ones that had such a fantastic database and database management system that they didn't even think about it. But once pressed, they said, yes, absolutely start with your data. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that if you're really at a loss for what to do. You can start with admissions records. You can start with graduation records. You can start with a tool like Alumni Finder or with data append services, which can be pricey, but you can certainly do that. There are also a couple of other tools, platforms that you can use that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, which is something like Graduate or Alma Base or Alumni Fire, which are platforms that will draw in information through an opt-in basis from social media. You could also look at LinkedIn. After finding those information, you can rely on something like LinkedIn. So there's a bunch of different ways to try to assess your data. Number 2 is learning the culture of the school. So even if you are an alumni of the school, it has changed since you've been there. Even if it's only been 10 years, small things have changed. You might have a change of leadership. You might have a change of faculty members. There might be somewhat of a pedagogical change or shift. You might be in a new campus. So lots of different things might change that would slightly affect the culture of the school. If you're not an alumni of the school, clearly that's something to think about as a top priority. Attending events, talking with faculty members, talking with students, just taking some time to learn what that school really values. The third priority is understanding the goal. What is the goal of your program? Now, I know this might seem obvious, but it's not. And every single constituency in your school is going to have a slightly different idea about what the goal is for the alumni program. And here's a little org chart that shows you all the different people that should be brought into this conversation about what is the goal of the alumni program. So veteran and retired faculty members are going to have some idea about it, and you should ask their opinion. Same with the current faculty members. Veteran, retired, and current faculty members are all key to your alumni program because in truth, they tend to be the draw, as well as the head of school for your alumni involvement and engagement. Your student leaders, find out what they actually want from their alumni association when they are alumni. How will you help them as opposed to them helping you? And talk with current key alumni and alumni board members. What is working for them? What's not working for them? And your fellow administrators, your Marcom department, if you have such a thing, development, admissions, your head of school, all of those people have different ideas about what the purpose of the alumni program is. And the sooner you can all get on board with one goal, the sooner you will be able to create a program and chart its progress according to that goal. The next one, number 4, is finding your people. And you can also use the org chart that I just showed you as a key to try to find your people. And that means finding people who can help you with the program. Faculty members can help you find key current students who will be great alumni members later. Veteran and retired faculty members can help you find leaders of different ages who can be part of your group. Alumni, current active alumni can help you find more alumni. So all of the people can help you build your program and find alumni that will make your program stronger. The next couple of slides have to do with finding your people, getting a little more into the weeds with finding your people. So let's think about that. First would be to talk with your soon-to-be alumni. So these are your current students. If you are a K-12 school or nursery through 12 school, you want to talk with your juniors and seniors. If you are a K-8 school, you're talking with your 7th and 8th graders. If you are a K-5 or 6, it's probably a little too early to try to identify your new to be alumni, but maybe not. So, chat with your 6th graders, chat with your 5th graders, see if they want to be a class rep. You never know. It could be a kind of a fun thing that's tailored to that age group. And many of the alumni directors had different ideas about how to be involved with this. So at Bryn Mawr, they attend senior meetings. The alumni director attends senior meetings and makes sure she knows all of the potential leaders in the Alumni Association from those years. At Canterbury School, she is the National Honor Society facilitator. So that gives her easy access to the school's natural leaders and their best and brightest. At Indian Creek School, Anne coordinates the senior dinner, which puts her, again, in direct contact with the seniors and their families. The more you know about the senior class, the better you can choose effective class representatives. And probably one of the most interesting ones that I came across was Charlotte Country Day School, which chooses their alumni class representatives while they're still in school. So there are junior and senior alumni class representatives. They serve on the student council. They also serve on the Alumni Association board. So they go to Alumni Association meetings also. And they help with all the activities of the Alumni Association, whether it's creating class baskets for freshmen or working on the reunion. They're already integrated, so you don't have this frantic idea of recruiting them later on. Next piece is picking up the phone, actually calling people, not relying on alumni to come to you by putting out the blanket plea to say, we need alumni to do this. It's actually contacting them and calling them, thinking about which alumni are going to be most helpful, what they do, who's most interested, alumni connecting you to other people. But you don't want to call your youngest alumni, they won't answer the phone. They hate talking on the phone, they will not answer, they will be irritated, they might even block your call. So you could text them, you could message them on social media, and they also won't call anybody else. So, so think about other ways to talk to your youngest alumni. Probably anybody younger than 30 is not going to want to talk to you on the phone. Sending a survey can be a great first step, but truly direct contact is best. Either you reaching out directly, whichever way makes sense based on the age of your alumni, or having someone introduce you because they think that they would be interested. Again, lean heavily on your veteran and retired faculty members and asking them to connect you to people who were leaders while they were still in school. Many faculty members continue to stay in touch with students, so they can be a huge help to you. And students and alumni respond really well to outreach from teachers. If you have spent time in development or you have a background in development, it might be intuitive to, when you reach out to people, to either meet them at their place of work or at a coffee shop. I know when I was a development director, it wasn't always the first idea to invite someone to campus, a potential donor. In the case of alumni, they absolutely want to come to campus. They can be nervous to ask to come to campus or think it's awkward to just show up, but they really do want to come back to campus. Annie Sawyer at Francis Parker was surprised to learn that alumni really did not want to meet her off campus, but they really wanted to eat in the cafeteria, and they wanted to walk the halls and meet with faculty members if any were still there from the time that they were there. So bringing them to campus is key, and they do really want to come back to campus. Which brings me to a subject of alumni on campus. So what happens if your campus has changed dramatically, or you have new buildings, or something, you've merged with another school, something very different has happened to your campus and the alumni of a certain age won't remember it? Well, what you could do is you can create touchstones. And touchstones are new places, ways to bring alumni into the campus space and help them feel really connected. And probably two of the best examples that I saw were from Green Hill School in Dallas, Texas. And Katie sent me two photos of their touchstone spaces that were newly created for in response to new buildings. So the first new building that they built was the library was no longer, and they built a new student center. Now, generally, alumni like to go to the library and they like to see places where they were, and there's good memories. They studied there, they met with friends. It's a very wonderful place to be. So since this was a brand new space, it left her alumni a little unmoored. So what she did was she created this Legends of Excellence wall, and these are all retired faculty members. And they're hanging in this special place in the new student center, which is a key spot on her alumni tour when people come to visit. And they are immediately greeted by the smiling faces of beloved alumni, really regardless of when they went to school. And every time a new faculty member decides to retire, there is a Legends ceremony, and students and alumni are invited to the ceremony, family members, so it's a big deal. So this immediately kind of roots this new space in the mind and heart of new alumni. The second touchstone that they created was for a performing arts center. So performing arts are a huge component at Green Hill School. Almost every student performs in a play at some point or another. And there was a tradition where they would sign the walls of the backstage area, and alumni liked to come and see their messages. So this, of course, was somewhat of a crisis in alumni. And they decided to print out all of these playbills from the entire history of their performing arts program and mount them on the walls of the backstage area, which allowed alumni to come and see these and think about them. And they will always tell Katie stories about this play or that play, or the one that their brother was in, or the one that the younger class did. So this helped really, again, cement the idea of this new space as a place for them, and that they are honored in it as well. Okay, and our fifth key piece to focus on in the first 2 years is evaluating past programs and asking for new ideas. So as best as you can, evaluate the past programs, the past events or things that had based on whatever the goal was, whatever you can glean as was the goal, and then figure out which ones were the most successful, and then ask for new ideas. Ask the alumni, again, ask the people in that chart what might be a better idea, or might be an interesting idea, or something you're toying with. And again, don't be afraid to try a new idea, but make sure that you can evaluate it against why are you having this event? And the second is how will you welcome the guests and meet their goals for attendance? So not only is it important what you want to get out of this, but what do they want to get out of it? I recently read a book called The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters by Priya Parker. And I highly recommend it just to shift your perception about the gatherings that we host and how people feel when they attend our gatherings. What do we want them to feel? How do we want them to connect with us and with our organization and with each other? And spending some time thinking about that, other than spending all of your time thinking about the venue and the flowers and the food, will help you create more meaningful events. The next thing is how will you follow up with the guests and utilize information gathered at the event? It's great to have an event, but if it becomes a one-off and there's no contact after that, that's unfortunate. So you have a golden opportunity when you do have an event. What do you want to do with it after that? And again, how do you want to utilize the information? How are you going to reach out to them afterwards? And here's a super, super important piece. For those of you at K-6 and K-8 schools, when you have an alumni event, always, always, always have as many faculty members there as possible. If you can make it a requirement, that's even better. Young alumni are often there to see the faculty, not the other alumni. Particularly a K-8 school, think about how you felt about yourself when you were 13 or 14. It's not as likely that you're so excited to see about the other kids, but you do want to connect with the faculty and administration. And that's going to be a real driver for getting kids back to events if that's your goal. Those of you that are K-5 and K-6 schools, or N5 and N6, on some level you're at an advantage because kids are most confident when they're 9 or 10 years old. So they're going to remember that, and they're going to remember how they felt when they left your school. And so even though it might not make sense to have alumni events till they're a little bit older, they're going to feel really good about themselves at the time that they left your school. So on some level, you have a little bit more going, or potential going, in terms of the psychological state of your students when they left you than the K-8s. The next piece is communications. Which communications actually work best with alumni? So now that you've addressed each of these 5 priorities and this evaluation of your events and your program is in progress, you're going to need to start communicating with your alumni and your alumni parents. I did notice that one school on your list has an alumni parent newsletter, and kudos to you for thinking about how alumni parents fit into this piece. Every one of the alumni directors that I talked to spent a lot of time segmenting the messages and making sure that they resonated with each different age group. If you have a Marcom director, fantastic, and develop a good relationship with them. I'm kind of thinking about the next few slides as if you are going it alone, or you're doing the lion's share of this communication yourself without benefit of a Marcom department. But if you do have a Marcom department, that is wonderful, and you need to make very, very good friends with them. So let's think a minute about social media. I could spend an entire workshop on social media, but we're just talking about, I'm just trying to give you an overview on where to focus. So of the social media channels, focus on 3 of them if you have time. First one actually is LinkedIn. So make sure you have a LinkedIn presence because networking, as I'm going to get to in a minute, is a key part of something that alumni directors are being asked to be part of lately. The next one is Facebook, which is going to cover your older alumni and parents probably, and then Instagram, which is going to cover your younger alumni, current students who are soon to be alumni, and younger parents. Twitter is helpful if you have a really robust athletic program. So if your alumni are gathered around the idea of athletics, Twitter can be really helpful if you have somebody who wants to tweet about the game in real time. If you're using your or utilizing your alumni for admissions recruitment, then you might want to consider YouTube, because YouTube is going to be a big driver for admissions recruitment. Email and electronic newsletters. All of the alumni directors were sending out email and electronic newsletters, but they're also careful to segment the messaging about that. Oh, I also want to mention that a lot of them are eliminating individual Facebook pages for each year. So if you're new to a program or starting up a program, don't create a Facebook page for every graduation year. It's a huge amount of effort, and it's a lot to monitor, and it gets kind of wonky when just one group is talking to each other. And many schools are actually eliminating the alumni Facebook page completely, with the idea that there's an advantage to alumni seeing what's going on in the main page, and for current faculty, current students and parents to see what's going on in the world of the alumni. So that's a thought too. Also, conversely, some directors really like to have the closed Facebook group, so they can really see what's going on with their alumni. One more piece about email from St. Edward's School, which is a Catholic boys' school in Ohio. And this might sound a little bit bleak, but one of their most popular, I won't say popular is not a good word, but has the greatest open rate and is most appreciated in terms of their email, is he'll send out death notices. If a class member dies, an alumni class member dies, he'll send it to that class and the grade below and the grade above. They have the highest open rate of any. They're always appreciated, and he gets a lot of positive feedback actually from helping people to know that information. Another question I get asked is, should you text? Several schools have opt-in group texting plans through services like Remind or via their database, and they'll text with particularly young alumni to invite them to an event or to take RSVPs. Annie used to use that a lot. She recently left that position at Francis Parker in San Diego, and she wasn't sure if it was a West Coast thing or just a young alumni thing, but if she would go with a program, if she had 5 solid RSVPs, knowing that within 3 hours of the event, she would get 20 to 25 more people saying they wanted to go and wanted to bring other people via text. So if she didn't make herself available via text, she would not get the kind of engagement that she had wanted. That's totally up to you. You can use that information for what it is. The next piece is tailoring the communication for the age group that you're talking to. So sending a blanket email or newsletter that is going to cover all of the ages, particularly if you're an older school. Some of you are really young schools, but I also have, I can see that I have participants that are from schools that are almost 100 years old. So you're going to have, in those cases, you're going to have alumni in different age groups. And I heard several stories about how important that is, because the school has changed significantly, and the things that alumni valued at certain times, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s, were not necessarily what was as important now. And thinking about how alumni created community for themselves is incredibly important, and kind of meeting alumni where they are in terms of what's valuable. Print. I wanted to mention print being very much alive and well. Schools tend to want to eliminate print because it's expensive, but in the case of alumni, it can be really an important piece, particularly if you're trying to cultivate legacy donors. Potential legacy donors, who are people who want to leave the school in their will or trust, are probably going to want to keep a printed piece around. It might take a long time for them to get around to going to their attorney. So Manchester Grammar School in particular wanted you to know how important it was to have a printed piece. I also wanted to spend a moment talking about thoughts on alumni fundraising strategy. So all of the alumni directors sat within the development department, but none of them were responsible for major gift asks. But they all had some responsibility for alumni contributions to the annual fund or alumni board giving, making sure that there was 100% of board giving. But I also came across a really interesting strategy, again, from Manchester Grammar School. And at over 500 years old, they've had a lot of time to think about their alumni. They have, I think, records of alumni gatherings from the 1700s down to what was served on the menu. But an interesting thing that they have noted, so this is an all-boys school from about grades 6 to 12. And they, many of these schools, for many of the students for many generations have received tuition assistance. So they're catering to a population in need for a large percentage of their students. And what they found, and financial assistance there is called bursary. And so what they found is that the alumni were very much interested in giving to the bursary fund. They wanted other students to have the opportunity to change the economic trajectory of their family in the same way that theirs was fundamentally and hugely changed as a result of their opportunity at Manchester Grammar School. But what they were not interested in was capital projects. Alumni actually didn't care if the buildings were crumbling because they liked them that way. And they didn't care if all the boys had Wi-Fi. It just didn't matter to them. They really wanted to make sure people had that opportunity. By contrast, current parents with means did care about capital projects and the Wi-Fi and all of that. So parents were asked to contribute to capital projects, and alumni were asked to contribute to bursary projects, the bursary fund. And another interesting piece of this is that the school does not ask their alumni to participate in any kind of volunteer opportunities, or they don't ask them for money until they're over 30 years old, because the school is still offering opportunities and support to their alumni even at that age. So they have a number of different grants available to their young alumni to further their education. So for example, if a alumni comes to them and says, I received a fellowship to study archaeology in Greece, but I can't afford the plane fare from London to Athens, then they will ask this young man to fill out a grant form, and if it meets the criteria, then they will continue to support him with that kind of grant. So they are continuing to build a rapport and build a sort of bank of trust within their alumni. The next piece, I really do wish you could see my slides because they're so pretty. The next piece of this is alumni director as a networking guru. So each one of my experts, and as I continue to talk about this with people, tell me how often they are now called upon to connect alumni or even current students to the alumni network. And that's becoming more and more of a value proposition in admissions as well. So not only are admissions directors pointing out the virtues of a current education, but they are talking about the professional network that is available to a student for the rest of their lives. And directors are being called upon to do that, to become basically a more personalized version of LinkedIn. So there, as I mentioned, there's a number of platforms that can be really helpful to schools in that. Graduate, Alma Base, Alumni Fire is free, actually. I had one school that was piloting that. Although several alumni directors without those tools would rely heavily on LinkedIn and spend time every week on LinkedIn, just kind of reaching out to people and connecting with them and manually updating their own records via what they were finding on LinkedIn. There's a couple of really good examples of alumni kind of feeding the current student experience. One was at the Blake School in Minneapolis, and Blake has a senior program, a senior research program, and every one of the seniors creates this research project that has to involve alumni. So alumni are asked if they want to participate, and then the students are coached on how to use their proprietary system called BlakeNet, which will allow them to connect with alumni who are interested in what they're interested in. So they're coached on the best practice for reaching out to them via email, and how to conduct an informational interview, and what to do with that information, and how to thank the alumni, just learning how to network and learning how to be part of this entire Blake system. Another school worth looking into, just look at their website called McDonough Works. So this is a McDonough school in Owings Mills, Maryland, and that has a really robust alumni system, and they've recently crafted their alumni program to really feed into the current student experience with online classes that alumni teach, with a podcast that talks about what alumni are doing out in the world. So you may say to me, that's fine, but those schools are really old and they have huge alumni bases. What do I do if my school is less than 40 years old? So I understand that starting an alumni program for a young school, particularly a K-8 school, is absolutely a challenge, and I completely agree with you, that is a challenge. And through my own trial and evaluation in a small school, a young school, and by recently speaking with a group of K-8 development directors at a conference in North Carolina where I was a speaker, here are some suggestions. Now, this is not a laundry list of things that you have to do next year, but I want you to consider any one of these things that you could do in order to try to jumpstart an alumni program at a young school. So the first would be to focus on the value of your alumni network for professional connections and not fundraising. So if you're a young school, graduating K-8 students, don't worry about fundraising yet. You might think about it from your alumni parents, but definitely not from your alumni. So asking them for money is not a good idea when they're younger than 30 or 35. But thinking about the value of it, how can you help them? The second is inviting alumni parents to join your network. So they are professional people, they have wonderful contacts. I guarantee that they're just as happy to help another one of your alumni as they would to be helping one of their own children. So asking alumni parents to join this professional network is a wonderful way to start this. A third idea is to host an alumni parent reunion. So there was a school in North Carolina doing a great job. It was an alumni parent breakfast with no ask and no ulterior motive, just for alumni parents to help, just to reconnect and have a great time and really enjoy themselves around and hearing about the good work that the school is doing, a school that they loved and probably devoted an enormous amount of time and energy to. A next piece could be deciding to start a program to send care packages to alumni as freshmen in college or a gift at college graduation. This gives you also a reason to connect with your parents, to ask them for contact information and help update your records, as well as just connecting with your alumni, your young alumni. The next one is look at which events bring alumni naturally together, and then be intentional in the alumni experience at that event. So for example, Indian Creek School in Maryland is a fairly young school. They took a look, when they were starting their alumni program, they took a look at what alumni naturally showed up to, and they naturally showed up to the spring musical, this play. They originally came just to see their friends because they were in college. It was around Easter time, so spring break for them. And they realized that they could capitalize on that. So they started having an alumni event, sort of a reception at the spring musical. And that's grown into a wonderful event. And now alumni come to it many years after graduation. They don't know any of the current students, but they just like to see the musical and be part of what's going on with the alumni. And the final idea, which you could consider, which comes from St. Paul's School in Baltimore, is to start an alumni recognition awards program and a ceremony. So alumni enjoy the idea of being recognized and voting for their fellow alumni around a certain idea. And you can choose what you would want to recognize an alumni for. And then tack it onto a ceremony that you already are having, whether it's a homecoming thing or the big game, the big football game or the big basketball game or graduation. So use a ceremony that's already in progress and then create this kind of alumni recognition thing as well. So just to recap our 5 top priorities in the first 2 years, which was assessing your data, learning the culture of the school, learning the goal, working with your people to find the goal of your program, finding your people, and evaluating the programs and asking for new ideas. And with that, I want to encourage you to go out and be brave and be bold and connect with your alumni. And I'm happy to answer more questions if I can ever figure out how to get Zoom back so I can see you guys. Right now I can only see Andrew. I don't even know how to see anybody else.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, Jill. I could not agree more with Susie when she said that you are a very compelling speaker and you've got a lot of important things to talk about. So what questions does everybody have for Jill? I see somebody placed one in the chat bar. I think that Eric was having some difficulty with the microphone. So here's the question, I'll read it. You say to make social media account robust, but what does that entail? Is question 1. Wait,
social media what? Tell me, say
account. Make the social media account robust. What does that entail? I guess for a school to have a robust social media presence, what would that involve?
I think it involves creating content. So you're going to have to find content in order to put out on social media. So working with other parts of the school, reaching out to your alumni to send you content, creating content, whether it's blogs or you need to create something in order, not create it, but you have to go look for what it is you want to put on social media that's interesting or compelling, and finding out what it is that alumni want to hear about. What's interesting to them? Do they want to know how do they want to know what the current faculty is doing? Do they want to know what new things are happening in the elementary school? Do they want to know about the athletic program? So then you can weave content in that's interesting to alumni.
Excellent. And a follow-up question to that is, what programs did you find were offered to young alumni to get them involved? So this particular person's school starts to ask young alums after they graduate from undergraduate. It's a nursery through 12th grade school. So they wait a bit while the students are still in undergraduate school. But what are some techniques to rope alumni in earlier than that, if you would advise that?
So when I send you the white paper, there'll be lots of ideas. Every school had ideas about events. One of the most interesting K-8 alumni programs is at the Calvert School in Baltimore. So this is a 123-year-old school. It sits in an affluent neighborhood that has been affluent since the beginning, and sort of a neighborhood school, and the kids go to a number of different feeder schools, but all in a similar area. Carly Slagle does a fantastic job at that school, and one of their most popular events, they probably get 80 to 90% of their alumni to come to it. It's for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And they have, essentially it's a kids' tailgate party that they have at school, and they show an away Ravens game on the big screen, football game. They have wings and pizza, and they have a cornhole tournament. It is a hugely popular event. We're not totally sure why, but it is, and it allows them to just reconnect with each other. Faculty come, enormous amount of faculty come, which is probably a big driver of it as well. So she has a couple of really strong events. There's another one, another K-8 school, and that she had also, which was to invite seniors back for a senior holiday brunch. And the draw for the seniors to come back is that also young college alumni come back and tell them about what's going on with their, what's going on with college. And I know I was on everyone's website today, all of the participants, and I noticed that one of the schools has a really similar event. So kudos to you who is doing that.
Fantastic. Another question is, when segmenting the audience, how finely do you need to cut the group? Do you do that by decade, every 5 years, young versus old? How do you segment the audience of alums?
Um, I would say uh, every 10 years, but it could actually be 20 years. And sometimes you can tell by shifts in your school. If a new space was acquired, that might have changed the culture of the school in a certain way. Blake School talked about that about 30 years ago, 3 schools merged together. It was a girls' school, the original boys' school, which was the Blake School, and a lower school, private lower school, all merged together to become the Blake School. So the members of the Alumni Association who went to the girls' school, for example, need to have a certain kind of communication before the merger as opposed to the ones after the merger, because it was a really different kind of school, and different activities and traditions resonated with those alumni. So sometimes it could be an event or things that happen to your school that would divide the way that the alumni feel about it. And sometimes it's just kind of a straight up age thing. Huh?
Okay, yeah. So we have like a wide range, like with people who are like gone to 100. So we have a wide range of alumni. But their kind of question was like, we've sent out letters to like everyone, all day, which can be quite hassle. But it's like, how do you know, kind of, I guess it's like what you say, kind of segmenting it between the different age groups. But it's like, do we send only to the most active, or do we keep trying to touch base with people who we haven't heard from in like 50 years?
So you're saying that you're wondering whether you should send this out because it's expensive? Is that why?
No, not really that it's expensive. Like, what's kind of the best way to reach out if you're not hearing back from them in like 20 years?
Okay, so it's been like you've sent letters to them every year for years, and they responded, right?
Yeah.
I would still email. I would still send to them, actually, because you never know. You absolutely never know. In terms of planned giving and legacy giving, most schools only know maybe 25% of people who have actually named their school in a will, and they'll receive a call from a lawyer saying that, this alumni has given money to the school, and the school had absolutely no knowledge of that. There's somebody that never reached out to them. So there is that outside chance that that's going to happen to your school. And so sending them pieces and sending them things and letting them know that you're still there's always that chance to do that. If it's not financially taxing to you to do that, substantially so, then I would continue mailing to them.
Okay.
You could segment the information if you wanted to do it by age. Maybe what it is that you're sending isn't really resonating because it's a blanket appeal. Perhaps you can have your information be much more donor focused and much more centric on their experience of that age group. So you might work on changing some of your language and wording and what your letters say to people.
Okay.
You could also try having a way for people to reach out to people in different ways. So if they're young alumni, create like a texting tree of some sort, or calling older alumni, or having a Facebook, reaching out via Facebook. So there's a number of different ways that you could try to reach out in them, but I wouldn't stop mailing to them.